Yeah, well, you missed. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
We're back.
We just came back. We went out of the shelter. There was shelling on Yavne. So you missed
Hey, Gewalt. Okay.
a siren sign. So it could be unique.
Moshe, can you
Now
turn it up?
it seems fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Maurice, would you like to ask
Okay.
Moshe about what things were like when
Definitely.
things started coming to a head?
Moshe, I understand that you're on the tarmac for some time. From the time you landed, how long did you have to wait until the Ethiopian Jewish refugees started boarding? How many came on your flight? And how long were you on the ground before being given permission to take off? Were you have any concerns about all this when they're on board?
Well, I can tell it with a timetable. Well, we landed somewhere in the morning at about 9 o'clock or something like that. Flight took about 3 hours and 15, I believe. And we stayed up to noon time. We were about 4 hours on ground, without any special activities. We finished the shutdown of the engines, and we went out, and we were told that it will take time. I'll bring you right to the peak of my life. After staying at the area there, at the parking area, smitching, here and there, suddenly we saw the buses getting in an instant. The feeling of boredom or anything I mentioned before turned into a peak of excitement. Telling it now, I get again my goosebumps. And we are known, the pilot, as people with their nose in the skies. We are better than everything, and it doesn't took only my emotions. I looked around, and all my fellows took immediately their sunglasses to cover the wet eyes. And I heard about it later on from everyone. But I'm getting to my story. I saw them with their black heads through the windows of the bus. And I felt, it's a slogan, might be a slogan, but I felt like myself. I, Moshe, the baby, I was born in a refugee camp, in a lager in Germany after the Holocaust. My parents, they lost, my mother lost all the family, my father, a big part of the family, and I, that Moshe, I'm going to rescue my brothers as an Air Force pilot of the Jewish state. You can't minimize that feeling. And when I'm telling again and again that story, it comes and rises up, and that's the peak. And at that point, and later on, I know even now that if I was born for something, well, that's my scratch on the history. And in my heart, and that's it. They entered the back door. Ladder was connected to the back door. They entered quietly, went forward to the front side of the cabin, sat down on those mattresses I mentioned before, without a word. And while getting in, everyone has, they were dressed colorfully. Everyone had a little pekale, something in his hands. And while getting on, I saw a woman with a beautiful baby in her arms, and she smiled to me, embarrassed. And then I looked at her, I smiled to her, and I believe I saw a certain relief in her side, in her eyes. And then she sat down and started to feed the baby. Just a little episode. Getting back, they filled, and we were supposed to take, by the briefing, 360 passengers. We saw there is more space. So another bus was connected to the ladder, and another 50 or something like that people get on. That way of handling the loading the passengers was repeatedly used on all the flights. So we knew we have to take as much as we can, more and more, to make the whole operation efficient as possible, and to take many of them, and we did.
You've got everybody on board now, Moshe, and Maurice tells me that when you took off, you had to wait on the tarmac still a little while. But when you took off on your return to Israel, I heard you handed over to one of your co-pilots. And please take us through what you did then and what you experienced, how it affected you.
First, a little small correction. We at our crew, as I told you, the crews were multiplied, because in this event or in this operation, no one should miss taking part. So we were 3 pilots, actually at least 2 captains, and maybe the young one was also a captain already. But so there's we were in, we tried every one of us. There are only 2 seats of operational flying. I stood up, the other pilot, the captain, get in, and we were told before that the cockpit door shouldn't be open because of the diseases in Africa, and so they said. And of course, I did it. Well, I don't know whether you can see a young boy. He's more handsome than I am now. Yeah, that picture was taken during the while flying. And
that's the old Moshe I know.
Yeah, I remember you a bit younger as well. Okay. Remember your question before. How did we feel when we took off from Israel and flying southbound? And I said, professional. this part of professional was interrupted willingly with emotions. Those who stood, those who stay with the wheel, with a stick in their hands, they continued to do their professional job. But anyone of us, the excessive crew at that time, we were high. We flew at about 30,000 feet or 35,000 feet. We were high above than 30,000 feet with our feelings. While taking off, I still said, I did the takeoff at Addis Ababa. And since it's not a normal airport, it's a high elevation one. It's about 8,000 feet, the level of the altitude of that airport, probably density of the air. And when I opened the 4 engines, one of them had some, jogging. So I had to retire them and do it slowly again. It's not too nice to lose an engine over there. And later on, it was normal flight. Special things that, as I saw, I told you before that we flew down southbound in silence, in communication silence. And so when we took off northbound and we got to our level, we heard first the block or the hold that the whole flying train was in Israel, not to send planes when it stopped over there on the ground. So they released it, and one after one, one plane after the other took off, and there was a certain train southbound along the Dead Sea, and then we opened our squadron frequency, and next to the Arab states, you could hear in our frequency Hebrew communication. So it was nice for itself. Another thing, as you saw, I was dressed. We all were dressed in civil. We wore civil clothes.
Casually.
Because we were told it's going to be, the agreement was to get the idea of a humanitarian operation. So we didn't wear our overall, the Air Force overall, and we did that. And the first aircraft to take off from Addis Ababa was, you won't believe, an Ethiopian Air 757, a civil Ethiopian airline. So there was one aircraft. It was a certain condition that we were told, don't take off before him. The pick, and I intended to leave it to the end of our meeting now, when we flew and descended along the Dead Sea and turned to the left. I believe you know what's under the left wing when turning westbound over the Dead Sea. I took the PA and I said, we are now over Jerusalem. And in one moment, all those tense people who sat quietly all along the flight, 3 hours, in a moment, they started to cry, to laugh. In a moment, it was like a bean can, voices and noises all over. And well, for them, we got to Jerusalem. And for them, we felt that they felt. We really did it. We really did it. That was the second highlights.
You really did it when you landed in Israel with all your passengers on board. And what was the reaction then? How did things go when you landed and the passengers actually alighted from the plane? What stands out for you then, Moshe?
Well, we landed normally. I was behind, as I told you, and we landed. We got to our parking area. Yitzhak Shamir, that was the prime minister then, and all the VIP were surrounded the aircraft, our plane, and somehow I got to the ladder next to the door up there, next to when we opened the door. And each of our dear passengers that passed by me, I wanted just to get out and then back, but no way. Everyone hold my hands, shake my hands before he went down. He went down with the stairs and kissed the ground. And then, just only then, they got to the buses. Well, a lot of stories were after it, and the media covered that part more. So I believe my stories wouldn't add anything that is unknown at that point. Yeah.
Now, Moshe, I believe that since all of this, you've been very active and very engaged with the Ethiopian community. You've actually been critical, I believe, of how the community's been treated by the Mishtara, the police. Maurice told me that you took him to the Sigd 2 years ago. This is the Ethiopian community's holiest day, a big event in Jerusalem. Melela, also Amata Sao or Sigd.
Yeah.
These are different names for this same event. It's one of the unique holidays of the Beta Israel community and celebrated on the 29th of the Hebrew month of Cheshvan every year. Now, this will be in November of this year, November the 3rd in the evening, and following through on the Thursday with the event. It's now an official state holiday in Israel. So apparently at the Sigd, when you were there visiting on this occasion, you were stopped by everybody. Everybody recognized you and they were hugging you and saying hello to you. So tell us a bit about your connection with the Ethiopian community, even still today.
Yeah, first, we are good. The Israelis, we are very good with operations, especially the military one. We are very, I'm sad to say, well, very bad with getting and absorbing new communities. This community is, you can't miss them. They have their color. I prefer not to speak too much because it makes the whole Lawrence very dark, saying 2 ways of dark, yeah. There was a problem of defining them as Jews, you know, they are better Jews than we are, that I am. But, you know, and they did Giyur lechumra and stuff you wouldn't believe. There was a problem with the kids that actually didn't have their Hebrew talking parents to assist while studying and stuff like that. And there was a certain deterioration that didn't do any good to anyone. Not for them, of course, but to the Israeli community as a whole. And here in Yavne, some guys, pilots, but not only, thought about another way of doing a turnover of that way of deterioration. And there was a certain community called Tasfachin, that is hope in Amharic. We called ourselves Hope to the Youth. We started to assist with the studying from grade A, from Kita Aleph. I can tell you, it is about 25 years or more that our band is working. There are a lot of engineers, advocates, doctors, and you name it. Again, my goosebumps. It's a problem. We are very proud of what we succeeded to get to without almost any support of governmental money, budgets.
You're still very active with the Ethiopian community. So tell me, how important is their contribution now to Israel?
As I told you, the results that I mentioned, there are a lot of doctors. They are in the army, hiring officers. A couple that is very close to us, he was assistant to a Knesset member in a certain time, and she is a nurse in the army, and she's a major, and she was the one the IDF sent to a Rambam hospital to be the one that is handling the support of the IDF in the Corona time. She was specialized with kids, but at the Corona, she was over there, and she did a big job. But they became part of the view in Israel in any of in the academic side, in the army, in anywhere you look at, you'll find them. And still, there is a big problem with what the police especially is doing with them. About 20 of them died not normal. I used to say, well, murdered. I won't say that word, but while I was in getting chemical treatment a few years ago, I decided that I have to go to the Shiva at Solomon Teka's death to help his parents. And they said over there some hard words that was in the media. But, well, we spoke about this. I can speak hours about what should be done to do it right, but we'll concentrate on that. By the way, I forgot, Maurice, your grandfather, your uncle, on Saturday. All my part of my participation in the Solomon operation was in Friday, and it kept going on, of course, up to a Saturday afternoon. And on Saturdays, as usual, I came to give a time to the place, Maurice, to my father's place. And we sat over there, and the window over there, remember, Maurice?
Beautiful view,
open to the street. We sat and spoke, and suddenly a neighbor came and she said, Avram, we just heard, and it's a secret, we just heard from our lecturer in the place we gathered, that right now there is an operation that the Air Force is delivering to Israel, our brothers from Ethiopia. And he said, wow. So I took him aside and I said, well, I was there yesterday already.
I have a memory that I want to share with everyone, Moshe. And you might remember when you told me many years after this wonderful, wonderful, successful mission that you were one of the lead pilots, and you told me all about it. I said to you in Yiddish, no, Moshe, was noch hast du getan? To those that understand Yiddish, what else have you done? And you said, I can't tell you. And I argued with you, and you said, I can't tell you. So I went to your brother Kuba, and I said, Kuba, Moshe has told me about this amazing mission, Operation Solomon. I knew about it, but I didn't know that you had participated. And I asked him what else he's been on, what other missions he's been on, and he wouldn't tell me. And Kuba told me. He won't tell me either. So that's the Israeli way and how Israel gets things done. Moshe did tell me, you did tell me that you had to shoot your way out a couple of times from a couple of missions. And you also flew Menachem Begin to Alexandria to meet with Sadat again. Yeah. And that's my cousin, one of many of Israel's warriors and all heroes that have made Israel what it is today.
I'll just finish my part with I'll read up what I used to finish my story through communities in the States or in Europe. And I say, throughout my service in the Air Force, I've participated in a lot of operations, some of them still secret. But I will always be grateful I was privileged to take part in this sacred mission.
We've come to the end of an abbreviated version of your story, Moshe. I'd like to thank you, Moshe, Major Retired Moshe Shaked, for your wonderful story and memories of a time that was so important for Zionism and the credo of the State of Israel. Especially such a good thing to be remembering now as Israel's going through so many difficulties. We need to remember something that was so positive. So this return of our Jewish brethren after such a prolonged separation from their true homeland is an extraordinary tale of courage and determination that you took part in. Now, the Israeli Air Force commander, Major General Avihu Ben Nun, I don't know whether you know the guy, Moshe, but he remarked that Operation Solomon truly represents what Zionism is. He says that it demonstrates the purpose for the State of Israel to provide a home and a shelter for Jews around the world who have suffered and were prosecuted merely for bearing the Jewish religion. So I thank you, Moshe, for helping us remember such a time of triumph in our recent history. And I thank you, Maurice, for organizing this interview with your dear cousin and enabling us to hear firsthand about an event of which we can all be very, very proud.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you,
Thanks for putting
David
it-
and Maurice, for giving me the opportunity to tell something that is so important for me, maybe for others also. And remember, the real heroes were those people, the Beta Israel. They are the heroes. We did the job. They are and they were the heroes.